Hey guys, a lot of people think since I'm a two-time USA memory champion that whenever I go to a class or I sit through a seminar, I don't take any notes, that I just sit there and memorize what the instructor is saying. That is not true. And I would never encourage a student to try to memorize as the instructor is talking. Instead, I highly recommend taking notes. Taking notes does several things. Number one, it forces you to synthesize the information and condense it as you're learning. Like what are the main points and writing them down. That in itself is valuable. The second thing that's valuable about taking notes, and maybe the most valuable thing is you have something to review later. You have something to look over and make sure that it gets in your memory. Now, there are different strategies on taking notes. And by the way, there have been studies done, and there was a study done, who remembers the most information from a class or a lecture? Is it the person who doesn't take any notes, the person who takes notes but takes them by hand, or the person who takes notes but takes them by typing into a computer? The studies have shown, or this particular study, that taking notes by hand, that individual remembers more than the person who doesn't take notes and the person who took notes typing them into a computer. Now you gotta ask yourself, why? Well, we don't know exactly why, but we can theorize. First of all, well, the person who didn't take any notes, taking notes forces you to focus, right? So number one, maybe they weren't as focused as somebody taking notes, but number two, they didn't have anything to go back and review. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory why the person who didn't take notes didn't win that contest. Now let's think about the person who wrote it out by hand and then the person who took it by typing it into their computer. When you are typing something into a computer, sometimes maybe you make the mistake or you're more likely to try to type every word or type more words that are necessary, and in doing that, you miss the next thing that's said next. But when you're taking notes by hand, you are forced to condense the information, to synthesize it. This is important. This is not important. You're taking more of the bullet points, and that is actually probably going to help you memorize more of the lecture than trying to type it in. Now, with that said, if your style is to type it into a laptop or a notepad or whatever, do it, okay? I'm not saying don't do it. However, if you're that person who loves to draw by hand, you may love this note-taking method known as the Cornell note-taking method. This was created by a professor named Walter Pock, and here's the concept to it. Get a sheet of paper and divide it into 4 sections. Now, leave the first top section is just really where you're going to put the title of your notes and the date and that kind of thing, the subject. The other 2 sections are down the middle. Now, the section on the right side of the piece of paper is going to be the larger section. This is where you're going to take most of your notes. So you would actually title this section Notes. The section on the left side of your page is maybe just 1/3 of the page. It's much smaller than the note-taking section. And this is where you're going to have your cue section. This is where it's going to be a summary of your notes. And then down below, the bottom section of your notes, that is where you summarize your notes. So again, you have these 4 sections. At the top, write the topic of your note, what you are taking your notes on. The right side of the notes is where you're going to take your notes. So whether you are watching an online class or whether you are reading a book or whether you are sitting through a lecture, take notes on what you want to remember. And this is going to be where you're getting the outline, where you're getting the general idea, where you're getting the main points, and you fill that in your notes. This is going to be where the majority of your notes are, in the note-taking section. Then when the class is over, then when you're done reading the book or the video course is over that you're learning from, go back and in the cue section, kind of summarize. This is where you condense your notes. Your notes are a condensed version of the lecture anyways. This is where you condense it even more and you really pull out the key points, maybe the cues or the brain triggers or the questions that you can ask yourself that's going to help you remember the notes. So then you go through and you write your cues. After you have your cues written, you have your notes, then you have the condensed version, which is the cues. Then you summarize it down here at the bottom. And in that summary section, imagine you went to a movie and you want to summarize the movie in just 1 or 2 sentences to your friend. That would be the summary at the bottom. When you review and when you study, you really focus in on those cues because those cues should be brain triggers that help you remember more of your notes. And then, of course, know the summary. This Cornell note-taking method is just one of many great note-taking methods, but it's one that I like as a memory guy. And the reason I like it as a memory guy is I like cues, small short blurbs that link in my brain that are connected to larger pieces of information. And that's what this cue section is going to do. So try this Cornell note-taking method out. Let me know if you like it. Type down below, maybe in the description, what is one of your favorite note-taking methods. Oh, and by the way, you know I do have a memory course too, right? The Black Belt Memory Course. Check it out in the description of this comment. I got a free gift there for you. And I'll see you on the next video. I'll see you on the next video if you subscribe. If you don't subscribe, I never will see you again. This will be our last encounter. You need to subscribe. I will miss you if you don't. See you later.